Hi guys, Scotty, Rifleman's Hangout. So we're going to be commencing the tuna test very shortly. We've got all the stuff now that we need to conduct the test. This is going to be just a quick video, or hopefully quick video, going through how we're going to conduct this test. I'm not going to go into what others have done thus far, just I will do that on the completion of the test and see if our data lines up with them. I've been following those guys pretty hard over the last year or so. Liaising with them, touching base with them, asking about their findings and stuff like that, and trying to fill in the gaps that they wish that they had gone through and conducted further testing. So with all that in mind, I'm on a budget, so I don't have the capabilities, the funding that those guys have. I'm purely trying to fill in the gaps to try create a more rock solid database for people to go off. So obviously, when we're doing any form of testing, baselining and sample size are going to be the two key components, and being able to go out there and conduct those tests in similar environmental conditions. Now, I don't have access to a tunnel or anything like that, so basically I'm just going through and waiting for a good overcast day and where point of aim isn't going to be an issue, and the environmentals are going to be very, very similar. So how we're actually going to baseline the gun. So the two tuners I'm going to be using are the Eric Cortina Gen 2, which I've got on my match gun, which I'm still trialing, and the TMB by BJ, Without Warning. So I've used this one here for about a year and a half. Love this thing, and I've got enough confidence in it to be able to play around with this and know I'm still going to get similar results from previous testing. But how we're going to baseline this is, because with these two tuners that I'm using, you can actually dissect these and have them in two pieces. So I'm going to baseline the gun with the break only, and then I'm going to add the weight. So we're basically going to be isolating the tuner itself. So we can do that with both the tuners. So there's two sides of the fence with all of this testing, regardless of who does them. There's the scientific side, which basically says there are so many things that happen behind the tuner that influence barrel movement or flattening that barrel curve, that the tuner can't eliminate all of them to be able to grab hold of dispersion in a way that is any way consistent, any way that is different to a barrel behaving normally. What they're saying is adding the additional weight is what's flattening the barrel movement, and from there they're not seeing any real scientific evidence to suggest that manipulating the tuner up and down the barrel is going to change dispersion size. So that's one of the things that we're trying to test out. How much difference by adding the weight, if any, is there going to be, and is the dispersion or the group size changing when we are manipulating the weight location on the barrel. So like I said, two sides of the fence is the scientific side, and then there's the manufacturers who say that yes, you can tune it on the top or the bottom or wherever you want to tune your barrel or your load on that harmonic wave, you can still isolate that. So over a large sample size, from what others are saying, and I won't go into this too much because I said I want to touch on this at the end, but what they're saying is over a small sample size, you can see a difference in the tuner versus the baseline, but over a sample size in which shooters generally shoot, you're seeing very little. So how are we going to test that? So ideally, in a perfect scenario, if money wasn't an issue, it'd be 10 round groups, yeah? I don't have that sort of money to drop 100 rounds of 140 ELD match ammo per setting. I don't have that sort of funds to do that. So a happy medium, and by doing the 10 shot groups, I'm not going to be able to isolate the first 3 shots or the first 5 shots because I don't have access to a 100-meter range that has electronic targets that are going to allow me to go there and conduct this test. So the manufacturers, both BJ and Eric say that how you tune these, or how these work, is you fire 2 shots. If they're not touching, then scrap it and move on to the next one. What the scientific guys are saying is, yeah, but you're not allowing dispersion to take hold of that because it's a small sample size. So how many groups are we actually missing when you take in consideration a 10-shot group via a 3-shot group or a 5-shot group? So these are all the things that I'm trying to get back with limited access to funding, etc. So what I'm going to be doing is doing a 10-shot string, but breaking that into 2 5-shot groups. So I can isolate the first 3 shots, the first 5 shots, and then what happens in a bigger sample size, adding the 5 shots or the total 10 shots and overlaying that onto it. So we're breaking it down. We're trying to get as much data as I can off that 10-shot string, but I can't isolate the shots individually. If I just fire 10 shots on top of each other, I can't isolate it properly. So that's the reason why I'm doing 2 5-shot groups, but doing a string of 10. So we're trying to keep that barrel state as steady as possible. So we're going to be shooting them in a cadence of around 10-15 seconds, so we can sort of maintain that barrel temperature. And then obviously we'll be temping the chamber and getting it back to that level state, and then shooting another 10-shot string. Now, because I don't have access to a tunnel, this test is probably going to take a couple of months, purely because I'm going to be at the mercy of the weather and making sure that the conditions are very similar. Because we're talking about group size, I'm not talking about the point of aim, point of impact. We're purely going off group size to see how much this changes and whether or not that change is scientifically relevant to what we're trying to achieve. So, baselining, we're going to be baselining, doing 5 10-shot groups just with the break alone. That way we can isolate this tuna. We are then going to add the tuna to it, and then conduct another baseline with the tuna, adding the weight, which is going to be another 5 10-shot groups. So they're all going to be 5 10-shot groups, just split into 5-shot groups. And then we're going to be doing 50 rounds per whatever increment the manufacturer tells us. So BJ is 1 revolution, which I think is 22 settings, and we're moving it 2 settings. So we're baselining it, moving it 2, firing 50 rounds, moving it 2, firing 50 rounds, move it 2, fire 50 rounds, and we're going to conduct that for 1 full revolution, and then get the data from that. Depending on what that data says, we might move on to another tuna as well, but that's why I elected to go for this tuna at the moment, because it's probably the most popular tuna out that's getting used on the firing lines at the moment, and I know enough about this tuna to know how it works, and I'm comfortable with using this tuna in this particular test. I know all the quirks to it. There isn't any really to this one. If you've used tunas enough, you will realize that each tuna is way different because of how it's manufactured. There are little quirks to them that you need to iron out before you do any sort of testing. This one here is pretty much the staple of how tunas sort of should be engineered, I guess, if you want any form of repeatability. Eric's is awesome as well. I'm still conducting testing with that one, but at the moment it's shaping up to be just as nice as what this one here is in the way of how it works. So that's basically going to be the outline of how we're conducting the test. There's going to be a lot of people going, oh, you need to shoot this, you need to shoot that. Yeah, man, I know, but I'm not made of money. I'm trying to get as much info as I can that my funding will allow me. So 50 shots per per setting, if you will see a pattern. You will see a pattern or a trend if this is working or not. And then we're going to go from there, and if it's not conclusive, then we'll move on and work with heavier weights. So if we go through and if the ELDMs shoot way too good from a baseline perspective and we just don't see any change whatsoever, then yeah, we might change things up and try get something that is not going to shoot as well, so we can actually see if these manipulate dispersion in relation to group size. So the reason why I went with the ELDM match ammo, because I know the SDs there are really low, so it counters that out. But remember, we're baselining this. So we've got a baseline to go off, so that if there's any discrepancies, we can go back and revert back to the baseline and say, oh yep, this is the pattern we've seen. So hopefully that gives you a rough idea of how we're going to be conducting the test. Like I said, I'm not going to go into what the other guys found and whatnot, because I want to save that and have a chat to those guys and find out what their opinion of the data that I found is, and see if they want to conduct anything with that data and then come together, maybe do a collab or something like that. But that's what we're trying to do. I'll keep you guys updated on how the testing is going. I won't release results, but I can keep you up to date on where we are on our schedule as to when that tuna test will be completed. All right guys, catch ya.